Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Todd Cheek coming at you with another episode of Living Your Best Life. And of course, just want to say thank you so much for giving us some of your time this afternoon, this evening, this morning, whenever you are or wherever you are in the universe right now. But if you don't know what we do on the show, I'm going to tell you right quick, right? Well, we invite professionals on to talk about what they do and how what they do is contributing to a healthier society, a wealthier society, just a better society in general, right? These individuals are out there in the trenches, and they range from anywhere from health coaches to doctors, all the way to finance professionals, you name it. We're just bringing them to us so they can talk to you, the audience. Please access these people. Take their information when I bring them to the show. That's what we want you to do. Today, you're going to be thrilled because we're going to be talking about a topic that is beginning to, gain a little bit more popularity because we understand the need for a healthy gut. And there is a connection between the brain and the gut. There is a brain-gut connection. But they say that life and death begins and ends in the gut. So we want to make sure that we are keeping that whole gut area as optimized, healthy as possible. Our guest today, Miss Shanah Bell, is going to be coming to you. Very, very educated woman in this topic, very qualified to teach and talk to you about what it means to have good gut health. So definitely you're going to be thrilled with what she's going to have to say and talk about. A very fun lady, and just a bundle of energy too. And you'll see why when we get to the podcast. But anyway, let's see, what do we got going on? Well, we got people that are 50 and above, all right, 50 years and above, such as I, 57 right now, and we have a new campaign that we're working on called 50, well beyond 50. And this is for individuals that want to recapture some of their youth, okay, that want to build a better relationship with food, and also just build a better relationship with themselves when it comes to accepting that, yes, I am 50 and I'm not ready to throw in the towel on life. And that's what we want to talk about. That's what this new program is all about. We have a new webinar coming up on the 17th, so please look out for that. But in the meantime, I want you to download 50 foods that we should stop eating after the age of 50. 50 foods we should stop eating after the age of 50. All right, stop it. All right. But anyway, everyone, that's that. Let's get on to the interview, and I'll see you on the other side. Y'all take care. Be good. Peace. And so welcome back, everyone, to the show. And like I said, listen, check out the new program that we're offering people that are 50 and beyond, okay, 50 and beyond. That's what we're talking about, well beyond 50. We have a new program that we're offering, so please do check it out. So like I said in the intro, we have an awesome lady coming up. I had the opportunity to speak with Shanah a few weeks ago, and she just, thrilled me with her knowledge, especially when it comes to gut health. And she is a woman that she lives, what is it? She walks the talk, or whatever the case is. As you can see, she's on a treadmill right now, walking pad or whatever it is, while she's doing this interview. So this goes to show this woman is serious about what she does. But like I said, she is a very knowledgeable woman, and I am so thrilled to introduce her to you all. And really, take some notes, all right? Get in contact with her. That's why we bring these individuals to the show, right? Get in contact with her, get these questions answered. We're going to be talking about gut health, and she's going to share her knowledge about gut health this afternoon. So Shanah, welcome to Living Your Best Life. Thank you so much for hanging out.
Well, thanks for having me, Todd. I really appreciate it. You're a wealth of knowledge in your own field, so it's great to break bread, so to speak, with somebody who is also an expert.
Well, thank you so much, Shanah. Thank you so much. So, your company and your business and your journey is an interesting one because, me, myself, I came up from, I'm in the 80s, well, not an 80s kid. I was born in the 60s, but my life and health and wellness kind of like or fitness rather, started probably in the 70s into the 80s when I was in the gym and on the back porch lifting weights. I didn't deal with any kind of like, health issues and things like that, but that's not everybody. Your journey is, it comes from a struggle, a challenge, and I want everyone to kind of get to know you and your journey to health and wellness and why you're doing what you're doing today.
Okay. Well, I think for me, everything started when I was much younger. So I was
Hmm.
I was born in the 70s, so I was pretty much a child of the 80s for the most part. In 1986, I got diagnosed with celiac disease. Um, I actually was very lucky to get diagnosed with celiac disease at that point in time because it wasn't even recognized as a disease until 1990. And I attribute that to living in Southern California at the time,
Hmm.
because most physicians didn't know what it was. And prior to that, I had actually been diagnosed with cystic fibrosis first, which I didn't have, and then leukemia, which I also didn't have. So out of the three, I will take celiac all day because
Hmm.
all that means I have to do is change my diet. I and I can do that.
Yeah.
So way back in the day, they gave my parents and I a printout, a large printout of all of the things that contained gluten that, to their knowledge at that point.
Yeah.
Um, and told me that I had to memorize it because this was before like food labels and before the gluten-free, many years before the gluten-free thing. Um, and that I had to, if I avoided those foods and those additives and the sneaky things that are, glutinous in food,
Hmm.
then I would heal and survive. So that's what I did. And I have been that way forever. I don't get sick. I don't have any issues with celiac or cross contamination at this point, but that's also due to gut health. And I that kind of just led me down the path to health and wellness because food has always been a huge part of my life, um, out of necessity. And so I was always a very voracious reader, trying to find new information. Actually, when I was little, I was trying to figure out a way to get the gluten out of chewing gum because at that point they said I couldn't have chewing gum because it had gluten in it. So I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to create a chewing gum without gluten. um, you know, many years have passed since then. And their knowledge is different now. So
Yeah.
originally I went to school. I took some medical classes in high school and I was going to go to, I wanted to be a physician, either gastroenterology or neonatology. So I was pre-med out of high school and I hated it.
Hmm.
um, I figured I would love it, but I hated it because I've always been preventative and food
Right.
has been a big source of what I do. And none of that is actually what they work on in medical school. It's a reactive medicine and I'm more preventative. So
Hmm.
I realized it didn't align with me. So I did other stuff in college, which was completely irrelevant, like totally different than
Hmm.
what I ended up doing. Life happened. I got married. I had two kids, and then I got divorced. And
Hmm.
people had always been asking me about nutrition advice since I was always looking into clinical trials and data and reading the things that most people aren't reading. And going to the library. This is before social media, and actually reading science books because that's what I like to do. So
Hmm.
I decided that I needed a better grasp on the cellular function and how everything actually works in the human body. So, as a broke single parent, I decided to go back to grad school and get a master's in nutrition,
Hmm.
so that I could have a better understanding of the mechanisms at play. So, I did that. It was a grueling 2 years of no sleep. I worked 9 jobs as a single parent and did grad school full time, but I
Hmm.
did it in 2 years so that I could sleep again. And after that, I started my business. And that was January 2016 is when I started my business. I graduated December of 2015.
Hmm.
And I actually work with humans and animals because in grad school, I had to do my internship with animals since the university I went to focuses a lot on animal nutrition. But
Hmm.
I had shadowed with a vet a long time ago and then another vet. So I have a background in that as well. So for years I worked a lot with animals and I still do. But last year I decided I wanted to try and really help cut through the noise more with a lot of the human nutrition. And I was looking for other modalities that are more preventative and holistic and less reactive,
Hmm.
that I could get into. And so I subsequently decided that I found out I qualified, which was great. So I sat for 2 board exams. So I'm now double board certified in lifestyle medicine and also in holistic nutrition.
Wow. Wow.
So that's where we're at now.
Congratulations. Congratulations on your journey and such a dedicated person to uh, improving or being a part of improving the health of society. I totally, want to say thank you, for that. Because like you said, cutting through the noise is difficult.
Hmm.
And, getting to individuals in, the average everyday, person is, caught up with a variety of different things coming at them, throughout the day. All of these messages, do this, do that, don't do this. And, caught in the middle, stuck in the middle rather, and can't get over, can't get under. And so, like I said, thank you for your expertise and your journey and your dedication. Now, going back, because you mentioned something about celiac disease, and I was wondering, if you could kind of like go back and just kind of like let our audience know what celiac disease is,
Oh,
and what is like a bad outcome, a worst scenario, worst case scenario for a person that has to that deals with that type of issue.
ah, so celiac disease is an autoimmune disease, um, where your body then decides that gluten is an invader. So
Mm,
typically, when it once you ingest gluten, it has to get down to the small intestine. So when you ingest gluten, you have celiac. Once it gets to the small intestine, your body sends up red flags and says invader, invader, and your immune system starts attacking itself. Typically, the way that it was always kind of noted when celiac first kind of was, I guess, figured out, is that it attacks the small intestine. And so basically your body starts, I hate to say eating your small intestine, but that's pretty much what it does,
wow.
which is excruciatingly painful, by the way.
Hmm.
So I have the typical symptoms in that it does that. So about 3 hours after I eat, give or take, that's the average time. It depends on how much you've eaten and what you've eaten, how active you are, everything else. So about 3 hours after I eat, if I ingest gluten, then I start getting a stomach ache and I start feeling like I'm going to throw up. And then it's
Mm,
major stomach cramps. Well, it's not stomach, it's intestinal cramps. So it's below your stomach. I know where it is.
mhm, mhm.
um, and then there's usually vomiting and diarrhea,
Wow.
um, until all of it's gone. For when I was younger and not in as great of health as I am now. Um,
Yeah.
I've always been in good health compared to the people I've been around, but
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
wiser now than I was then. I think we all are as we get older, hopefully wiser
Hopefully.
than we
Yeah.
were when
Hopefully.
we were
Yeah.
younger. So now when I get what I call gluten poisoned, which seems to only happen lately at medical conferences in hotels. Um,
Of course.
things like to get mislabeled a lot. So the last one that happened was last year at a medical conference, and I was only sick for about an hour and a half, which was
Mhm.
great compared to the worst it had been before was 3 days. So sick until something comes out, then so sick I can't eat anything or drink anything, and that would go on for
Wow.
3 days. So
Wow.
the worst case scenario for people with celiac, especially undiagnosed, is death. Cancer is a
Mm,
huge side effect.
wow.
When I
What kind
was
of cancer?
diagnosed, well, gastrointestinal a lot of times, but
Okay.
it could be other forms of cancer because celiac is an autoimmune disease.
Oh,
It
okay.
doesn't present the same way in everyone. So my oldest actually has celiac because it's genetic. Now,
Mhm.
we can get into epigenetics, but basically, just because you have a gene doesn't mean it will be turned on,
Yeah.
and that's epigenetics. Both of my brothers have the gene. They've never had active celiac. My oldest child does have celiac, and it took 2.5 years for me to get her diagnosed, even though I had it. She's 19 now, so quite a long time
Mhm.
ago,
Yeah.
mid 2000s. And they wouldn't run the test for celiac because they didn't think that her symptoms were the typical symptoms. And hers were runny nose, itchy skin, watery eyes, sneezing, coughing all the time. But those were her symptoms. That's just what she had. And failure to thrive. Failure to thrive is fairly common with people with celiac.
Wow.
So it just depends. I've had people who have migraines and constant migraines, can't get rid of them, and that's their symptom. So it just depends. There is, they run the gamut, just as all autoimmune diseases do for the most part.
That's interesting. Now, question is that I do have for you. Have you ever been out of the country, out of the United States? I mean, the reason I ask is because one of my clients went overseas and like wherever, Europe, France, wherever. And he has some gut issues. I'm not sure if I can't remember if it's celiacs or not, but he has some gut issues. And he had an awesome time over there eating bagels and, whatever, food that he cannot eat here. But when he came back here, he began, eating according to his diet and his nutritionist. And all this inflammation started to happen. And now he's having really bad acid reflux and things like that. So, and the reason I'm asking you this is that is there a difference between the gluten products overseas versus the gluten products here, if there's a difference?
There is a difference. Now, for those of us who have celiac, we still can't have any of it. Because gluten is gluten is gluten. Now, that being said, I can handle cross-contamination, and so can my oldest, because I grew up in an era of cross-contamination since nobody knew what it was. So there's a clinical trial, I think right now in phase 2, that's actually doing something similar with celiac that they do with people with peanut allergies and introduce small amounts to get your body used to small amounts so that cross-contamination isn't an issue. Basically, I've been doing that for 40 years without a drug. So works for me. But I can't have large amounts. I mean, I can, but it's not going to be good for me or anyone else around me. So I have actually heard this from quite a few people who don't have celiac, but have other gastrointestinal issues or have a hard time processing gluten here or see side effects with themselves with gluten here, whether it's joint issues is a big one, stomach pain issues in the bathroom, things like that. But some people get headaches with it here. In other countries, it is different. So we have changed the gluten protein here in America. We actually increase the gluten in our wheat. So the gluten is the largest protein in certain plants. Wheat, rye, and barley. When I got diagnosed, I was told it was wheat, rye, oats, and barley. So I wasn't allowed to have those 5 things. Now they know that's not the case, but oats are highly cross-contaminated in processing here. So, so it's the largest protein in that plant. Well, what we've done here in America is we have crossbred it continually to make the gluten protein bigger. So it is larger in this country than it is in other countries, which can cause major issues because gluten is it's a large protein and it's kind of sticky. It's what gives bread the stickiness when you're kneading it. So imagine what that does to your insides. So it's just hard to break down. And if your body's trying to break down something large, this is similar to kind of breaking down red meat as well. All your energy is going to digestion. So it's trying to break that down. And so if anything else is going on inflammatorily in your body, your immune system doesn't have the energy to work on that while you're digesting all of this. So you can't be in 2 places at once. And it doesn't help that we spray our crops with glyphosate as well, and other countries do not. And that's a whole nother story. So there's just a lot of issues with the main commodity crops we have here in America. I'm not saying every other country is perfect. That's not what I'm saying. But the products there are going to be different than the products here because we have grown things differently. We produce them differently.
Thanks for that, because like I was saying, and I hope he's listening to this. you know. But like I said, I know that when, like I said, when he came over back from Europe, he's like now having to go to his doctor just to try to find out, how to calm his stomach issues and all. So
Hmm.
let's dig a little bit deeper, into gut health, because I think gut health, you know, even though it's becoming, we're talking about it more.
Hmm.
I don't think that we're relating it to a lot of issues, in terms of bad health outcomes. And are we too far gone in terms of a generation? I mean, I think the generation. I
Oh.
don't. I don't know if the generation, after us, Shauna, is going to be better
Hmm.
off, even though they have more knowledge. Um,
Hmm.
can we do something to what does good gut health look like? Can we do something to get us back on track with good gut health?
I mean, good gut health comes down to what you eat. Oh, a big part of it. It also is related to stress and sleep. Um, because your gut is actually, so it's your second brain, it's your first immune
Mhm.
system. There's many different names for it. And the reason it's called, do you know why it's called the second brain?
Talk to me. Tell us. I'm going to say
Um,
no.
okay. Well, the main reason is because in utero, and I forget exactly which day it splits, but in utero, the brain and the gut are one thing.
Okay.
And then at a certain day, they begin to split, and then they are connected by the gut-brain axis. They are the
Mm,
same organ. So
mm,
the
mm,
brain just develops a little bit differently than the gut does, but they're the same. They connect to each other. That's why it's the second brain. So
mm,
what's going on in your gut? And they've proven this with some studies, especially with autism, um, and anxiety and depression. So what's going on in your gut is if your gut is not happy, is not in a level of homeostasis,
mhm,
if there's too many of the inflammatory gut bacteria or fungi, and there's not enough of the other ones, then your brain is then in a state of crisis, and you can get anxiety, depression. It can stem from that, along with other things, but it can stem from what's going on in your gut. So if you can change your gut environment, you can change some of the reactions that you have and the thoughts that you have, which then calms your body down all the way around. Um,
mhm.
so it's very interesting, some of the science they've been working on with gut and mental health.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and a lot of that still has to do with sleep and stress as well. So
yeah.
it's all connected. I think the biggest issue that I have that's hard for people to get over is that the way our current medical system works and the way a lot of information works online is it's very reductionist. And we
Mhm.
are actually very dynamic beings. We are not
Yeah,
just
yeah,
gut health or brain health or physical activity, or we're very, very dynamic.
yeah,
So there's a lot of things in play in order to make this system work as well as it does. And
yeah.
if one thing's out of whack, the dynamic machine doesn't work so well. Things start to break
Right,
down. So,
right,
you've
right.
got to work on all of it. So if there's something going on, I like to look at gut health first,
Mhm.
because I want to see what's going on with all those guys in your gastrointestinal tract, um,
Yeah.
and see if there's some things that are out of whack that can be worked on, and that then could create a better balance so that the rest of your body can start working on getting back into balance.
Gotcha. Because you brought up a very interesting point. All things having to work together to complete, holistically make you a healthy person. And
Mm-hmm.
I love that approach, because we tend to come at it from a singular, in my world, it's like, I mean, that's why I say movement more so now than, you know, exercise. Because
Mm-hmm.
when we think of exercise, a lot of people tend to go towards the gym route.
Yes.
And I want people to get away from that mindset, or that thought, because and so that's why I say movement. So that movement
Mm-hmm.
looks like what you're doing, you know.
Yeah. For me, this is my physical activity, which physical activity is just moving.
Yes.
Exercise is under the umbrella of physical activity.
Yes.
So
Yes.
exercise is intentional. So I guess technically this could be exercise, but it's part
Yeah.
of this is part of what I do all the time. This to me is kind of like breathing. So
Yeah.
this is just like if I'm going to go out for a run or a hike, that's exercise to me. This is
Yeah.
just like me
That's
sitting at a
just
desk.
you're the first one I've actually interviewed that's actually, and so this is awesome. I love
That's
it.
funny. My husband before the interview, he's like, "Is he going to make you get off your treadmill?" I said, "I mean,
Not,
if he wants me to, I guess I'll sit down."
not at all. Not at all. I love it. So I hope everyone, I feel kind of like, it's like, wait, maybe I should be up,
I
walking on a
mean,
path.
there have been studies that have shown that exercise works. I mean, and you probably know this as well because it's up your alley.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
exercise, just movement in general, actually helps your brain operate better. So
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
I
Of
find
course.
sitting makes my brain start shutting down. So
Yeah.
if I want my
And
brain to work, I've got to walk.
that is awesome. But like I said, I don't want people to think, exercise sounds chorish, if that's even a word,
Hmm.
but it sounds like that chore. And I don't, like I said, I want to move people towards let's at least, especially for someone that hasn't done any exercises in years. And there are a lot of people out here that haven't done any
Yeah.
exercises in years. So let's just start moving first. What
Yeah.
can we do to move better on a daily basis or what have you? So, like I said, I love
Hmm.
your approach to a more holistic, approach, to overall wellness, and with gut health being one of them. But yes, let's talk about sleep. Let's talk about, your social environments. Let's talk about
Hmm.
stress. All of these
Yes.
things matter. And
Yes.
so, yeah, but what when I was thinking, in my comical mind, when you were talking about the brain and the gut, being, in that utero stage and phase, um, I see, it's like, okay, when you say split off, now what comes to mind is, you know, gut being a physical thing.
Hmm.
And because we can pinpoint to the brain, but we don't know how to pinpoint, you know, to the gut. So how do we, what is the gut?
Well, the gut is your gastrointestinal tract for all intents and
Okay.
purposes. So your small, large intestine, the colon, um, and it's this. The large intestine is where the majority of your gut bacteria live. There are some that live in the small intestine, not many, and sometimes you get some from the large intestine that decide to flow back up into the small intestine. And that's when you get SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which can cause a problem. Typically,
Mm.
you have sphincters in your body, which I know
Mhm.
most people hear
Mhm.
sphincter and they laugh because they're like, ha ha
Yeah.
ha. I mean, that's what I get all the time. There's 7 of
Yeah.
them. There's more than just that one you're thinking of in your head.
Yes.
And they're what's supposed to keep things flowing the way they're supposed to flow and prevent things from going backwards. So
Okay.
sometimes the sphincter between the small intestine and the large intestine can get weaker, and typically that's the case when inflammation is happening. So usually inflammation before that that causes the sphincter to not do its job fully, where then you get some bacterial overgrowth in the small intestine. But
Wow.
most of the gut bacteria lives in your large intestine, and to our current knowledge, we have exponentially more bacteria, fungi, and all these other fun guys in our large intestine than we do actual human body cells. So
Wow.
we are really more of our gut bacteria than we are human.
Wow.
Um, and the fact that for all of these years we didn't know that, but now that we do, and we're still kind of neglecting that they're a huge part of how this machine operates, is kind of disappointing that there's not enough people who are really looking more into that. Um,
Yeah.
so that's one of my areas of focus,
Yeah.
probably because I got celiac so young,
Mhm.
which is gastrointestinal disease. So that's probably why I was more drawn to that, because I know what can happen when things aren't the way they're supposed to be.
Right.
Um,
Right. This
so
is so
yeah,
fascinating. Yeah.
it's pretty cool. There's a lot. I mean, if you want to look on PubMed, you can just type in, gut bacteria or gastrointestinal bacteria
Mm.
or just bacteria and see what you find. There's so many studies that they're now working on that have to do with
Mhm.
gut bacteria.
Yeah.
which I find interesting. Um, there was one recently that had to do with, I think they were doing
Oh, wow.
red meat versus a plant-based diet.
Hmm.
It wasn't a crossover study, but they were looking at different gut bacteria, and they found after, I think it was after a week, certain gut bacteria that crave red meat, because the gut bacteria are kind of like us. We like certain foods, like people in the South have a tendency to like different food than people in New York, or,
Hmm.
so just think of
Yeah.
it like
Yeah.
that. Your gut
Yeah.
bacteria, that each one of them, each species kind of has things they like. So what they found is that the bacteria that, that really kind of thrives on the red meat started to shrink or disappear. And then they had more diversity on the plant-based diet. There was less diversity in the gut bacteria on the meat-based diet, which was
Mm.
interesting just because they can shift that quickly. Um, and what you put in your mouth now starts creating new gut bacteria to love what you love. So it explains why people who are addicted to sugar, which is so easy to be addicted to,
Yeah.
keep eating sugar because your gut is telling you they need to be fed and they want that sugar. So it's hard to break it because it's addictive, first of all.
Wow.
But
Wow.
but then it takes a little while to kind of starve them out
Yeah.
so that they stop sending the signals to your brain that you need it, which is also explains why change can be so difficult when it comes to food, because it's not just
Because
in your
you've built
head.
this army. You've built this
Hmm.
army, so to speak,
Yeah,
of military. Yeah.
that craves it. Yeah, fast food's another good example. They've done a few studies on that, and it's the same thing. You have certain gut bacteria that just love that stuff, that have a tendency to be more inflammatory. So
Yeah.
if you can shrink that army,
Yeah. Yeah.
you can change your overall health, but it takes time to do that. And I hate to use the word willpower, but sometimes that's what it takes, just getting through
It's all you
one day
got.
at a time. If you're trying to change something, it's hard because you have the signals from your brain, which are coming from your gut, and your gut's
Yeah.
like, give it to us now.
That's like I said, this is so fascinating,
Yeah.
and thinking about like, okay, carrying on with the rest of my day and being
Hmm.
intentional about, of course, what I put in my body, and of course, how I share information with my clients. And
Hmm.
so, like I said, everyone, please do get in contact with Shanah. Because, like I said, not to say that I'm any kind of a bookworm or any kind of a nerd in this area, not at all, but I'm just as almost a child in this area. I'm just so fascinated, with this. Now, it seems, I've heard the word inflammation come up pretty often,
Hmm.
in our conversation here, and that seems to be, a problem with, so it's a precursor or it's a result or what have you, but I'm hearing that word come up a lot. And I don't know if, we are we able to handle inflammation um, medically? I don't think we're doing a good enough job. I don't know if we're doing, a decent job, teaching about how to reduce inflammation in society. And so, yeah, like I said, it was something that caught my attention, this word inflammation that's coming up from you.
I feel like inflammation is one of those things that's kind of like fat. It's
Hmm.
given a really bad name. Uh, just like fat is demonized.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
and in the case of overall health, a lot of times what you are having is inflammation. But what we have to remember is that inflammation is low level inflammation is actually used to, like, it was a system created by whom I don't know, but it was a system created. Our
Yeah.
bodies use it to help repair and fix things so that it can get the
Gotcha.
body back into homeostasis. So it's really a repair function. That's
Mm.
really what it's supposed to do. The
Mhm.
problem is when you then have too many things for the body to repair, then you have constant inflammation because it can't fix everything. It's
Got it.
going a million miles a minute, and then
Yeah.
you just have more inflammation than your body can handle. So inflammation is actually low level inflammation is actually a good thing. Like, think about when you get a cut
Yeah.
or hit your knee on something, you get a bruise and it kind of swells up. That's
Yeah.
inflammation. It's going there because it's trying to fix what you just damaged in a fairly expedient manner, and then it will regress when it's done. So
Mhm.
it has a good purpose, just on low levels, kind of like
Yeah.
fat.
Yeah.
Fat is required for, we have to have fat as humans on our body in order to survive because it's used during times of famine, which we evolved in famine. It's also used to
Right.
heat the body when it's cold. But fat now is so demonized. Like, you don't want to have any fat on your body. You don't want to
Yeah.
eat fat because it will turn into fat. And I'm like, you have to have some fat, because if you don't have any fat and you get a cold, your body has no reserves in order to fight
Mm,
said thing off. So
mm,
you have to
mm,
have some fat on your body,
mm.
because that's where the reserves are,
Yeah.
for the body to do what it's supposed to do. But just like inflammation, there's a line between having
Yeah.
a good amount of fat and too much fat where it becomes detrimental. There's a
Yeah.
good amount of inflammation and too much inflammation where it becomes detrimental. So it's
So,
I think it's similar to physical activity and exercise, right?
yeah.
You
Yeah.
can go
Yeah.
too far.
Yeah. Exactly. And that can be inflammatory,
Yes.
when
Oh
you go
yeah.
too far, if you think about it. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like, chronic stress versus acute stress, or, those
Mm-hmm.
responses. Um, um, a certain amount of stress is can save your life, in
Yeah.
terms of like the acute kind. But the
Yes.
chronic that is ongoing, that's high, that's just like, up here all the time. Yeah, that's going to do
Mm-hmm.
some damage. And so, yeah, like you said, but like I said, I often speak of the word inflammation, and but thank you for breaking it down, because we do need it, and
Mm-hmm.
it shouldn't be demonized for its existence. But when
No.
it's too much, then it becomes a problem. Now, when it comes to gut health, I was curious because, like I was saying in the intro, talking about well beyond 50, uh, what happens to our gut as we get older? Do things get, they deplete? Do we have to, pay attention to certain things more so as we get older, with regards as it relates to the gut?
Um, I mean, there can be some things that make it a little more difficult. Protein's one that's focused on frequently with older adults, because the enzymes that break down protein you start producing less of, or to
Okay.
our current knowledge base. This is our current knowledge base, but I know they're still continuing to do more studies. So that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that will be true in 5 years. But the most recent one I was looking at said that it wasn't a reduction to the amount of what some things are hyped online, that you have to get all this extra protein if you're older because you're not getting enough.
Hmm.
I think typically you're supposed to get, is it 0.8 to 1 gram per kilogram of body weight
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
protein.
Yeah.
And as you get older, into older adulthood, they bump it up more to the 1 to 1.2. So
Hmm.
it's not a huge thing. And what they found in studies is that really you're not losing much of the protein you're getting in. So that's more than adequate if you just
Yeah.
increase it to that. But you can get that from many things, including plants, because all plants contain protein. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Contrary to popular belief, it's not
Yeah.
just meat, butter, dairy, and eggs.
Yeah.
So diversification is important for your gut as well. So if you want to have good gut health, diversifying your diet, which is a huge issue we have in the United States. There's definitely not enough of that. Um,
Hmm.
Diversification breeds more diverse gut colony, and they all have. We're still trying to figure out what they do, but we think they actually do more than just break down the food. Um,
Yeah.
so current science is saying they probably actually affect a lot of other body functions besides just breaking the food down. So I think as we continue to dig more and more into the gut microbiome, we're going to come up with a lot more interesting things, almost like looking for lost species in the deep
Yeah.
sea.
Yeah.
um, um, so I think that's why I find it so interesting, because there's so many different species, and they're
Right.
so vastly different, and they do different things, and they respond to different things.
Yeah.
And there's different species that help with certain maladies. So if you have more of this certain one, then that, can help reduce stress, or it can help you sleep better, or, it's interesting just learning so much about a lot of these different things.
Gotcha.
Um,
Gotcha.
so yeah.
Yeah. So, as we come in for a landing, Shauna, I have a couple more questions, kind of quick questions that I want to throw at you. And one is, are we, is, are our foods being depleted in terms of the soils? I've heard a
Mhm.
lot about this. And so I just wanted to get your perspective on it, your answer on it. Are we getting the nutrients in our foods that we used to get 50 years ago, 100 years ago, or what have you? Is it being depleted?
It is being depleted because we practice monocropping
Okay.
in this country. And monocropping definitely depletes the soil because it's kind of like the gut microbiome. You're not giving it the diversity it needs
Hmm.
for to have all the vitamins and minerals that it used to have in the soil. So we're
Hmm.
basically stripping it. So there are certain things like vitamin B12 we aren't getting as much of anymore. And the reason is because it is a bacteria found in the soil. Well, our
Mm.
soil is stripped of it and doesn't have it anymore. Algae is where I get mine because they inherently have it. But if you get vitamin B12 from a meat source, they're photosynthetic. They're not getting it from the soil. They're
Gotcha.
getting it from their feed. So we are already low in that. Um, like selenium's another one, copper and iron, um, potassiums. I mean, all of them, pretty much
Wow.
all of
Wow.
them. So, I mean, we're not eating the same food that our grandparents were eating,
Right.
unless unless you're lucky enough to grow some on your own property, which my
Yeah.
husband and I try to do, but we don't grow nearly enough to, feed
Yeah.
feed us.
Yeah.
But we do what we can, and we would like to do more because I know I'm not stripping the soil.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are definitely some smaller local farms that try to use regenerative practices. Greenhouse grown can sometimes do better, but we are not getting the nutrients we were getting before.
Yeah.
And we probably won't in the current state we're in until we change our farming practices.
Wow.
And I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
because
You know,
it's not monetary for them to do it. But there are a lot of
yeah.
people who do um, they do different crops. They'll plant 3 or 4 crops on top of each other so that they can feed each other. They can feed each other what they need, and so that way the soil is complete. Um,
Mhm.
and I love that. I mean, that's how they've done it in other countries for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not as cost effective to grow it that way here, so that's not how we did it.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Unfortunately, a lot of things come down to money
Yeah.
here in the United
Unfortunately.
States.
Yeah, unfortunately. And so, and I say that, and I ask that question because I really want people to understand that once, like I said earlier, uh, you have to be intentional about your health
Mhm.
because, no one's going to take care of your health but better than you. But
No, yeah.
you have to, become aware of what's going on.
Mhm.
And, like you say, in a system that is, financially driven, um, your well-being is not at the forefront of their mind. So
No.
let's be realistic about it. Not trying to sound conspiratorial or anything like that, but let's just be real about it. That
Mhm.
bottom line is that
Yeah.
you're really not at the forefront of their minds.
No.
Yeah, and
So
so
I get blood tests done twice a year just to
yeah,
see what my levels are and see if I
yeah,
need to bump something up.
yeah,
Because some of these take 3 or 4 months to get through the system properly through all the cells. So I usually just get tested every 6 months.
yeah.
So
What kind of labs are
I can
those?
see. I use a company called Function Health, um,
Okay.
which is run by functional medicine doctors, and it's online, and they send you to Quest, whatever Quest is near you, to get your
Hmm.
blood test
Hmm.
on. And there's an annual fee. You get to go twice that year for the fee, but you can add
Okay.
on other tests. So like they do have a celiac test, they have a Lyme test, they have a lot of other stuff, but they're doing a full CBC, including hormones, vitamins, minerals, urine. I'm usually getting about 113 to 120 different biomarkers
Wow.
when I go.
Wow. Wow.
So I
Okay.
found that to be, for me, the easiest because I don't have to go to a physician. Um,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just make an appointment through the app I do it every 6 months, and then I go to a Quest and they draw my blood and I'm out in like 10 minutes.
It's not just your financial numbers you should be aware of, right?
No, you should. I mean, because like you said, nobody has a more vested interest in your health than you do.
Yeah.
So I think that's another issue we've had in our current landscape is that people stopped advocating for themselves. They
Yeah.
rely on the healthcare system to solve their problems, but really, unless it's financially lucrative for them, they're not, it's the only person who's
Yeah.
responsible is you. So
Yeah.
you have to be your own advocate and,
Yeah.
figure out what's going on with you. You're the only person who's been with yourself your whole life. You know,
Yeah.
if you don't feel right or if you feel sick, they don't necessarily know. And there's a bell curve with all testing. So you might look like you're well based on their testing, but you don't feel well. And you might be on this side of the bell curve as opposed to up
Yeah.
here. So that doesn't
Yeah.
mean you're well.
Yeah.
um, so you have to advocate for yourself, whatever that
Yeah.
means to you.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. One other question that I do have, because it's something that, I was reading, a while back, with regards to depletions of nutrients in our bodies through
Mm-hmm.
medication. Because a lot of us are so heavily medicated,
Mm-hmm.
we're used to, going to the doctor and running that same route. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the doctor, pharmacist, medication, back to the doctor, pharmacist, medication, back. And so we're used to running that same route, and we don't question what medications are doing to our bodies. And of course, they have the commercials every, if you watch it on television, every other commercial is about a medication. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll say, like, this might cause blah, 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 blah. But what they're not
Yeah.
telling you is you might be depleting such and such nutrient. You might, So,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, share a little bit about that if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, and a lot of here's here's something a lot of people don't know is that most physicians um, don't even get the one sheet for what medications they're giving out. Um,
Hmm.
I mean, they got some information in med school, obviously, and medications change all the time. I mean, we have some of the old ones, but we get new ones all the time. And for the most part, because physicians are so overworked, so I don't want people to think that I'm bashing on physicians. I'm
Ashley,
not,
exactly,
because
exactly.
they went into healthcare with good intentions. Unfortunately, the system
System.
is broken and is a profit system. And so they have to see so many patients in a certain amount of time in order to get insurance reimbursement. And if not, their business is not going to survive. I mean, it's
Yeah,
it's really a travesty.
yeah,
And the problem is they don't have enough time to learn about all of these new medications and all of the side effects in most cases. So they dole them out based on what the pharmacy or the pharmaceutical rep tells them. Well,
hmm,
pharmaceutical reps are selling things. So
oh,
um, they're they're going to give them the highlights. But from what I've learned recently, most physicians, if they're in a larger practice, they don't ever see the one sheet that comes in with the actual pharmaceutical, which gives more information. It gives the full in-depth information for the FDA approval, like what the side effects were that were noted, what issues were noted. And a lot of times they aren't looking for deficiencies when it comes to vitamins and minerals. They're looking
hmm,
for people who have serious issues that could get a drug pulled. So a
yeah,
lot of them won't even have that. But most of these
yeah,
physicians won't even see that one sheet because larger practices get the pharmaceuticals in bulk. And sometimes the one sheet is in the bulk package and gets thrown away before the meds get passed out to different physicians. So they don't even see it. So
wow, wow.
they themselves don't know. They're not trying to do harm or not give you the information. They have 10 to 15 minutes with you and that's it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
for the whole visit, that's not very effective. Um,
yeah,
Unless you go see a different type of physician, functional, integrative, naturopath,
yeah, yeah,
um, in which case they have more time. But that's the bigger issue is that most of them don't know. So a lot of times when I have clients that come to me, because I ask for a full history, including all meds they're on. I actually go to the pharmaceutical to this website for the drug and I pull up the one sheet myself and I look for all of the clinical trials that were done with these to try and find out if there's any information
hmm,
um,
hmm,
with side effects or issues for depletion and things like that. But it's still
right,
difficult to find.
wow,
Um,
interesting, interesting,
and I think a lot of I think there's just a lot. of drugs that are not tested for the things that are really important long term, besides,
Yeah.
besides death, that is important also. Serious maiming. But, depletion of certain vitamins and minerals is it's basically a slower path to death, but it could be doing that as well. But they aren't testing those because that's too difficult to test short term when a drug is going through 510(k) submission to get FDA approval. That's not how it's done.
So, not to be critical, like you said, I'm not bashing, doctors at all, because they're in a really caught between a rock and a hard place,
Yeah.
What used to be the prestigious type of, career is like diminished now to like, the high, most probably other than air traffic controllers, one of the highest stress types of, of career choice.
Oh, yeah. There's a huge physician burnout. I think
Yeah.
at the medical conference, they put a slide up about it. I want to say it was something like 43%.
43. Wow.
Yeah, and that doesn't include residents. It's a higher percentage of residents that have burnout and then just leave. Like they just leave the profession altogether because it's not sustainable for them.
Yeah.
And it's not fair for us to. It's not fair. It's a much longer conversation. It's just it's frustrating that this is how the system has evolved.
Yeah.
And we all need to do something to fix it, or it will never change. It will just continue on this profit, money making machine that it is, that doesn't really care about the client, the patient, or really the physician. They just care about the bottom line.
Yeah.
So it's not beneficial.
Yeah, like I said, that's a whole other conversation, but I think it needs to be discussed, and I think it starts in these small circles. So, like, anyone that's listening, take heed. Like I said, bottom line, you have to give yourself a fighting chance. No one's going to look out for you better than you are going to look out for yourself, hopefully. And all.
Hopefully.
But like you said, we're pretty much giving it over to, the powers that be, to say, okay, you're in control, and I'll just tell me what to do. And my ultimate goal is to help people, become empowered, with knowledge, enough to make, a decision on choices that they're going to have to make when it comes to their health. And so if that can be that alone, if anything, then I've done my job and all. And so I want to, thank you for hanging out, and being a part of my vision to help individuals learn about what you're doing. And hopefully when they listen to this conversation, they begin to start to ask the questions, okay, where am I in this whole thing? How am I feeling? What numbers do I need to check? How can I get in contact with Shanah? So let us know right quick. How can people get in contact with you, Shanah? And your website too. I'm sorry, you can attach it.
The best place is really my email, adaptivenourishment@gmail.com. I am on social media, not a whole lot. I have a LinkedIn, which is my name, Shanah, Shanah, Bell, BEL, like Taco Bell, but no taco. No tacos. And then I'm on Facebook as Adaptive Nourishment, and I'm on Instagram as Adaptive Nourishment.
All right. Awesome.
Yep. Awesome. Those are probably the main places to get me. Okay. I'm told I have a website floating around somewhere, but I took it down years ago, and I think somebody put it back up, but it's not actually mine.
Wow. Okay.
So if you find it and I'm on there, that's great, but I don't know how to get it down. I tried with Google and they didn't do anything.
That's crazy. I don't know where it is, but it's out there.
It's out there somewhere. I can't change or edit it either, so it's all old stuff, but whatever. I know, right?
That's crazy.
The joy of technology.
So thank you once again, Shanah, for coming out and hanging out with us. I truly, truly appreciate it. And keep doing what you're doing, please, because we need soldiers out in the world and in the field like yourself that are helping us live our best lives. So once again, thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Well, thanks for having me, Todd. I really enjoyed the conversation. And I love what you're doing, trying to give people information so they can make their own educated decisions for themselves.
Yeah.
I admire that.
It's about empowering, man. It's about empowering, and I hope that we didn't overrun your walking. Like it's like when is this going to end? Because I was like, oh, I hope we're not going.
Nah,
Okay, good.
no, not even close. I
All
try
right,
to
good
hit
deal.
20,000 a day, and right now I'm at 11, so I still got
All
about
right, good.
9,000 more to
All right,
go.
good deal. Good deal. I was concerned, and
Nope,
so.
not at all. It'll actually, this one turns off after 90 minutes. So after 90
Oh,
minutes, it
okay.
tells me I have to get off.
Oh, okay. So we still got some time. I was like concerned. I was like, we're not going too far.
No.
Before you said, I got to get off this thing. Hold on. But but once again, thank you so much. Everyone, listen, find this woman out there, Shanah Bell. She's doing her thing. Like I said, we're bringing these individuals to your screen, to your phone, or wherever you're watching her, or listening to us, or what have you, to you. So they're out here in the trenches, and that's what it's all about. People out here in the trenches doing this every day. Get in contact with them. Thank you so much, everyone, for hanging out with me on another episode of Living Your Best Life. And I look forward to the next guest coming on to talk about how we can do just that, live our best lives. So you guys take care and live your best life, okay? At least find a way to live your best life. Y'all take care. See you next time. Be good. Peace.